So this verse in particular is what we're basing this little series on. And I've done this series before in other churches. I've heard it done from other pastors. And why I believe. Why do I believe? Why do I have hope in me? And it says always, right, be ready, always being ready to make a defense to everyone who asks you to give an account for the hope that is in you, yet with gentleness and reverence. So, last week we talked about this, right? We said, do you believe in God? And most of you, a number of you, said, yeah, I believe in God. And then I asked the question, why? Do you know why you believe in God? Answer for that. It's one thing for us to say to people, hey, this is my opinion. You need to respect that, although they're starting not to. But it's another thing to say, not only is it my opinion, but it's the truth, and I want you to believe it, right? Because now it's not just everyone's entitled to their own opinion. Yeah, everyone is entitled to their own opinion until you want to make other people accept it. Then, okay? And that's the difference. In living in God, you have to be ready to defend your reasons for belief if you want others to believe like you do. Hey, if you want to go home and believe in spaghetti monsters, I don't know, but you don't expect anyone else to believe that, then you don't really have to give a reason. If I mean, it's crazy, it's ridiculous. But if you want everyone to believe in spaghetti monsters and unicorns, well, you better give us some good reasons, right? Some good answers. And this is different than that. We are believing in God, and we want everyone to know and give an account. We have to give an account for why that is. Why do you do? But yet, don't go out there beating people over the head, calling them idiots. We have to do it with gentleness and with reverence. So last week we talked about why I believe in God, right? And we said the atheists have a couple of reasons that are pretty compelling for why they don't believe in God. And those two reasons we talked about were the divine hiddenness, which means that God has hidden himself. And that doesn't make a whole lot of sense to an atheist. Why would a universal creator, why would he hide himself? That seems crazy. He should reveal himself. And then we said, well, actually, he has revealed himself all throughout history in many different ways through great signs and wonders, and they've written it down. And we talked about that at length, and actually, because a lot of people think there's a conspiracy among the church to create God and the myth and all that. So there's a conspiracy to suppress the truth and to keep God hidden from the rest of people in the world. We talked about that. Also, the problem of evil and suffering. If there is a God, why is there evil and suffering? I thought he was supposed to be all good, and I thought he was supposed to be all powerful. If he's all good and all powerful, why is there bad in his creation? And we said, well, actually, you have a different definition of good and powerful, all powerful, than what God reveals himself to be. God is not all powerful according to the definition that atheists have, that they think we have about God, right? So they'll say, God can do anything. Well, actually, God cannot do anything. There are certain things God cannot do. You say, what? Can you think of one thing God cannot do? Lie. What else? Sin. God cannot sin. He cannot also look on evil. He can't look on evil. He can't not punish evil, right? And he can't do anything that is against his character. He also can't, right? So there are certain illogical impossibilities that even for God, it's just he would never do, and so therefore he cannot do, because he decides that he will not do it, right? He can't. He can't sin. He can't die. But what about Jesus? Yeah, Jesus the man. Yeah, Jesus died, right? But so he's not all powerful. Well, not in the way that atheists would have people believe that we are claiming, which we are not. There are plenty of things God cannot do. And then also another problem with evil and suffering is actually the evil and suffering in this mitigated punishment from the wrath of God for the sin of mankind against God in the first place. What do we all deserve? What did God tell us would happen the moment we sinned against him? Death, right? Eternal death. Adam and Eve, the day you eat of that fruit is the day you die. But in his great mercy and divine wisdom, he allowed that we would continue on, but instead he cursed the earth as a result. And a lot of suffering is a direct result of that curse. It's also a direct result of the free will of other evil people. And we sin against each other all the time. Okay, so those are some of the factors we talked about. And then we talked about the 4 C's of God's revelation, how he reveals himself to us. And that was through creation, right? The world itself. It declares the glory of God. It reveals his divine nature, eternal power, right? We talked about Christ, Jesus Christ, and that he reveals God, the man who he was. That's who we're going to talk about today, Jesus Christ. We also talked about conscience. Everyone knows, I'm telling you, everyone knows that there's a right and a wrong. Everyone just knows. And if there is no God, right, that makes no sense. There's no reason to have a conscience. If it's random cells and atoms and molecules banging around in the space, and it just happened by chance and physics and principles, then there is no right and there is no wrong, and there is no karma, and there is no what goes around comes around, and there is no reaping what you sow, and there's no good, and there's no evil. But we all know there is good, right? And there is evil, because we have a conscience. There's no reason to have a conscience. Animals don't have conscience, right? Doesn't make sense. And then the last one, canon, right? The canon of Scripture. So all the books of the Bible. We're going to talk about the Bible next week. But today, and these reveal God, and the Bible is unlike any document you've ever read or heard about before, ever. This is an amazing book, collection of books. But today, we're going to talk about that C, Christ. We're going to talk about Jesus Christ, the second part. And he is really the center of our discussion and our belief. Because we said last week, it's not enough to believe that God exists. I mean, that's a start, and 90% of all humans throughout the history of the world have believed in God, believed in a God, that he exists, okay? It's very rare and very recent that we have anybody that's kind of saying, nope, there is no God. And most atheists, the theory, the common phrase is, God doesn't exist and I hate him, right? And that just doesn't make a lot of sense, but that's the reason. But today, we're going to talk about Jesus Christ. It is not enough to believe in God. You have to also believe in his Son, Jesus Christ. Jesus said this, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. And Jesus is talking about himself. The statements he made were amazing. Why I believe in Jesus. Today I'd like to propose to you that Jesus of Nazareth, a man who lived on the earth 2,000 years ago, was and is in fact God in the flesh. Here's why I believe it. 5 reasons I believe Jesus is God. Number 1, his words. His words. His words and his teaching have the ring of truth to them. There was nothing like this man before. As a matter of fact, the people that were gathered around him in that day and age said, no one has ever taught like this, because he teaches not like the scribes do, but he teaches as one who has what? Authority. You've never met anyone like this. Jesus was the greatest man to have ever lived on the face of the earth. Even his enemies. I remember one story where they tried to arrest him. They tried to arrest him before he went to the cross, right? Actually, they tried to kill him, set him off a cliff. Has anyone ever seen The Chosen, the movie, the TV series, The Chosen? Great show, isn't it? Oh, I love it. It's so fun. And he's in Nazareth at the one episode, and they get ready to push him off the cliff. You remember this? And they're coming up to him, and they're like, okay, you stand accused. This is what's going to happen. And all of a sudden, he just kind of is like patient. He's waiting. He's at the edge of the cliff, right? And I like the way they portray it. I don't know if this is how it happened, but it's probably a decent way. And he looks at them, he says, this is not going to happen today, right? And they get ready to push him, and he takes a step towards them, and they go, whoa. It's a huge crowd of people, and they're just like, he has authority. You remember at the Garden of Gethsemane when they come in to arrest him, right? I get goosebumps just thinking about it. This man and his authority that he had over people and everything. Like, they came to him, and he said, whom do you seek? And they said, Jesus of Nazareth. And he said, I am he. They all fall over, hit the deck, right? They're just amazed. Well, another time they tried to arrest him, and they came up to him, and he's talking, and then they come back empty-handed. And they said, why didn't you arrest him? Right? They sent the temple guards to go arrest him, and they said, this guy, no man had the authority like this man. You don't understand, religious leaders. You don't understand. This guy is different. He had such a command and a personality, and he had no positional authority. Do you realize that? Like, there's certain people and jobs and certain occupations that you just get a certain amount of authority, and you work your way up, and maybe you're the boss of a big company and you have a certain amount of authority. But then there's personality authority, and maybe your physical presence, and I'm a tall guy and I'm a big guy, and so sometimes people get intimidated by me. I try not to be intimidating, right? But Jesus had none of that, right? And I'm a pastor, and so I have a certain amount of basic respect from people, and Jesus had none of that, right? He was no stature that we should look upon him, right? And he had no official title. He was not the high priest of the people at that time. He's our high priest today. But just his personality, just by who he was, this short, probably short, not necessarily very attractive, Jewish 30-year-old. He's just a kid. He's 30. I used to think 30 was old. I'm not 30 anymore, right? 30-year-old. And they go, and he is just, his knowledge, his words, his personality, they can't stand against him. And that's why I believe. That's one of the reasons I believe. His words, what he had to say. You know, you look at the four Gospels. I love the four Gospels. I especially love Matthew. If I had a favorite gospel, it would be Matthew. Guess what my name is? Matthew, right? Book based on Jesus. I mean, you look at the Sermon on the Mount. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. I mean, you hear that, it's wow. I mean, I could just spend all day just talking about his teaching and his words. Right? You are the salt of the earth, but if the salt has become tasteless, how can it be made salty again? It's no longer good for anything except to be thrown out and trampled underfoot by men. You are the light of the world. A city set on a hill cannot be hidden, nor does anyone light a lamp and put it under a basket, but on the lampstand, and it gives light to all who are in the house. Let your light shine before men in such a way that they may see your good works and glorify your Father who is in heaven. Just the words of Jesus are amazing and astounding, and they affect people and change lives even today. And this is a man 2,000 years ago. Second reason I believe in Jesus, believe Jesus is God, is his character. Now, we've talked in the past here about how difficult it was to convict Jesus of a single crime. You remember when he was arrested, right? They put him through a series of trials. And they arrested him. Why? It starts with a J. They were jealous. They were jealous. They didn't like Jesus' popularity, and they wanted him out of the picture. And so what do? They trump up some charges, and they arrest him. And then they get some false witnesses to say. And all, you know, we've talked in the past here about the trials of Jesus, how he went before, right, Herod, he went before Pilate, he went before, you know, back and forth, ding, 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 ding. Caiaphas. He had all these different charges brought against him. And then what? Can't find, Pilate said 3 times, I find no guilt in this man. Right? I wash my hands of this. He's not guilty. I can't find a single thing he did wrong. And this is a society, by the way, that's not just like our society where it's like you have to break the law pretty seriously to actually get caught and punished. Like, this is like a sin is breaking the law back in those days. Telling a lie will get you thrown in jail, right? Or executed. They couldn't find anything. It's amazing. They couldn't find a single thing. His character held up. He also loved his enemies. He prayed for them on the cross. They have literally nailed him to a piece of wood. They put nails through his hands and his feet, right? They whipped him. They ripped his beard out of his face. They hit him over the head with a stick until blood comes gushing out. They whipped him with a cord of nine strands, a cat of nine tails, right? And then the flesh and the skin are ripped off. He's bleeding on the cross. He's got spikes driven through both his hands and in his feet. And he looks up to heaven while they're mocking him. And he says what? Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. Who does that? Right? If somebody kind of cuts me off and when I'm driving, I'm like, hey, jerk. Right? Get out of my way. What's wrong with you? Or somebody is kind of mean to me or somebody, it's like, I'm not happy with them. I mean, eventually I'll pray for them, but if they're actively crucifying you, and this is Jesus doing this. Father, forgive them. His character was amazing. His enemies couldn't find a crime to charge him with. He was loving. He was gracious. He did good works. He was kind. He was sane. If you're dealing with a mentally insane person, you've heard C.S. Lewis and his proofs, right? His reasoning, he's like either a lunatic or he's a liar or he's Lord, right? And usually mentally ill people aren't this coherent and able to do what he did. And how could he defeat all the religious leaders that are experts in the law and debate? They do nothing more than debate all day, every day, right? And it's just child's play. He answers all their questions perfectly. The third reason I believe in Jesus as God is because of his miracles. Because of his miracles. There are amazing things that he did. No magician today even could do the things he did 2,000 years ago. You say, well, it was probably magic. It was tricks. It was sleight of hand. You want to talk about feeding 5,000 people, right? Oh, and it's a miracle. He fed 5,000 people. It must have been a trick. Where would you put food for 5,000 people? I've been down here downstairs when we've had a potluck for like 100 or 50 people. You all bring in a lot of food, and apparently evangelical free people, we can eat too, right? I grew up Baptist, and I know Baptists can eat. Well, so can free people. I can tell you, there's a lot of food there. And it's like, the whole counter's full, and we're all getting it. And there's a lot of food that we eat with just 50 or 100 people even. Now imagine 5,000 hungry men. And that does not include their wives or their children. I'm telling you what, you get everybody over to your house, grandparents, parents, you get all the kids with all their spouses and grandkids over to your house. What happens to your food supply? Pat? Gone. And it was a lot to start, right? It is gone. So let's multiply that by about 10, 20, 100, 1,000, right? 5,000, 2,000. Where's he going to put it? Let me just pretend to get some more and pull this out. And here you go. Got some more over here. What would it fill? Like, it would be huge, massive. You couldn't do it. And he did it. Not to mention, how is he going to walk on water across the Sea of Galilee? 12 people saw him do it, right? Then, not to mention that, it's thunderstorm, and he says, peace, be still. Boom! The wind and the waves instantly stop. I don't like on The Chosen where it takes a minute and it's kind of slowly. In Scripture, it is immediate calm. Instant. And they go, who is this that even the wind and the waves obey him? This is crazy. This is amazing. He brought people back from the dead, and not just mostly dead people, right? They're not just mostly dead, they are all dead. And all you can do now is look for loose change. Some of you know what I'm talking about there. But these are all dead people, and he brings them back to life. Right? You remember the synagogue leader? His daughter, she comes, he raises her, Talitha kum, brings her back from the dead. The widow of Nain, her son, brings him back from the dead. And then his best friend, one of his best friends, Lazarus. And by the way, the Lazarus you associate with rising from the dead because of this situation. He waited a long time so that before he went to Lazarus' house, because he knew he was sick, and people kept telling him, he's sick, hurry, hurry. He's like, okay. And he waits, and he waits, and he waits. By the time he gets there, he's been dead for 4 days. That's good and dead, right? Good and dead. And don't swoon there, right? And he brings him back to life. I will also say that prophecy is involved. And this is prophecy that Jesus fulfills, not just after the fact, because sometimes I think we go, what are the odds that this would happen in this way? Well, it did happen in this way, so the odds are 100%, if you think that way in terms of math. But if you can predict it ahead of time, that's the difference, and that's what's powerful. I remember, anybody ever play the game called Horse or Pig? Basketball? Yep. Okay. I played with some of you with that. Austin, where are you? There you are. We played Pig, remember? Yep. And when I was a little kid, you could cheat by playing Pig you would kind of bounce the ball, and then you would pretend that you were calling your shot as you're shooting it. Right? Do you know what I'm talking about? So Pig is where the first person takes the shot, and if they make it, then the next person has to make the same shot, or they get a letter. And then if you get to Pig, P-I-G, then you lose, you're out. Right? But if you make it, then you're free, you don't have a letter. And then the next person's turn. So when I was a kid, we would do this, where we'd play, we're like, okay, and then I'll bounce it twice, as I bounce it twice, and then I will take the first shot, and then I'll miss it, because it misses, as it's happening. And then I'll get the rebound, and then I'll bounce it again, and I'll take another shot, and I'll miss that one, and then I will take this, and then do a layup, and that one I'll make. And you say it as it happens. And you go, see? I told you. That's different than calling your shot, right? And that's what people think, well, that's, this happened. No, this is like Babe Ruth. Right? He gets the baseball bat and he goes, remember? And he's calling his shot. He says, I'm going to hit it right out there. And then sure enough, up we go Muhammad Ali. I'm going to knock him out in the 7th round. And sure enough, he knocks him out in the 7th round. But this is more than that. Do you know there were over 300 prophecies that Jesus fulfilled in the Old Testament? Jesus fulfilled them with his life. I have like 15 of them right here. The Messiah was supposed to be born in Bethlehem. Jesus was born in Bethlehem. The Messiah was supposed to be preceded by a messenger. Was Jesus preceded by a messenger? His name was John the Baptist. The Messiah was supposed to enter Jerusalem on a donkey. Did he do that? Yeah. That's in Zechariah. The Messiah is supposed to be betrayed by a close friend. See Psalm 41:9. Did that happen? Yeah, Judas. Number 5, the Messiah is supposed to be sold for 30 pieces of silver. Guess how much Judas got for betraying Jesus? 30 pieces of silver. That was in Zechariah. The money for the Messiah, the money for which the Messiah is sold, was to be thrown to the potter in God's house. Did that happen in Zechariah? Yes, it happened. Judas said, I betrayed innocent blood. He chucks the money back in the temple. And then they buy a field with it. The Messiah was supposed to be born of a virgin, Isaiah 7:14. Guess what? Was Jesus born of a virgin? Yes. The Messiah was supposed to be hated without a cause, Isaiah 49:7. That happened. The Messiah was supposed to be silent before his accusers, Isaiah 53:7. Yes, that happened in Matthew 27:12. The Messiah was supposed to be executed by crucifixion, by having his hands and his feet pierced. See Psalm 22:16. Crucifixion wasn't even done when Psalms 22:16 was written. Just amazing. The Messiah was supposed to be given vinegar to quench his thirst. And that happened. The Messiah was supposed to be executed without having a single bone broken in his body. And that happened. The Messiah was supposed to be buried with the rich man, with the rich when he was dead. And that happened. The Messiah was to be raised from the dead. And that happened. The Messiah was to be executed by crucifixion as a thief. And that happened. You see all these things. The prophecy is just amazing. You could not, 324 separate prophecies that he fulfilled. And I found this online. You can find these kinds of things online too if you want to learn more about them. Number 4, his resurrection. His resurrection from the dead. That's why I believe in Jesus. It is amazing to me that now, actually it shouldn't be amazing, but now even secular historians are claiming and understanding and have to accept the reality of the physical resurrection of Jesus of Nazareth. What? They accept that he's a real person. They are certain of that. They accept that he died by Roman crucifixion. They accept that. They accept that he was buried in a tomb. They have documentation. They also accept what? That there is an empty tomb on Easter morning. You know, it's Easter because he rose from the dead that day, by the way. Right? They accept the fact that other people saw him after he came back to life, post-resurrection appearances. And not just, I think I almost saw him. Yeah, I think that was him. Let's start a religion. It's not that at all. They didn't just see kind of somebody they thought looked like him and reminded them of him. I mean, after someone you love dies, right, you kind of see them everywhere a little bit. This is different. They went up and talked to him. And a couple people talked to him, right? No. 500 people saw him at one point, all together at the same time. And they didn't just talk to him. They went up and had breakfast with him. They went out to Denny's. Well, not Denny's, but they went out to the beach, and they had food with him. He said, do you have anything to eat? I'm hungry, right? Do you have anything to eat? And so they gave him some food. I'm not a ghost. Ghosts don't eat. What's going on here, guys? And it wasn't just once. This happened over 40 days. They saw him over and over and over again. Last of all, his legacy. His legacy. What does he leave behind? I'm going to just go through a few things. Jesus of Nazareth changed the world. He changed the world. Not just a little. He radically changed it. No one else in history has claimed to be God. Well, lots of people claim to be God. But then after they die, do people keep going, yep, he was God? His 12 closest friends that spent the last 3 years of his life with him, they all said, yep, he was God. We saw him with our own eyes. We touched him with our hands. And I'm telling you, he was God. I'm telling any of you, if I find your 12 closest friends, are they going to say you're God? No. My wife, my mom, my kids are here. Hey guys, am I God? They were quick. Have I ever sinned? Have you ever seen me sin? Yeah. I think that lasts about 2 seconds. But guess what? Jesus' mother, his own mom, believed he was God. The woman that gave birth to him. His brothers who hated his guts because he was Mr. Perfect, all believed that he was God. His 12 best friends all gave their lives because he was God, and they refused to say he wasn't. They were willing to pay the ultimate price for that. Yep, he really was God. John, his best friend, arguably, says this about him: what was from the beginning, what we have heard, what we have seen with our eyes, what we have looked at and touched with our hands concerning the word of life. And the life was manifested, and we have seen and testify and proclaim to you the eternal life, which was with the Father and was manifested to us. What we have seen and heard, we proclaim to you also, so that you too may have fellowship with us. And indeed, our fellowship was with the Father and with his Son, Jesus, Messiah, Jesus Christ. So what else did he leave behind? Sundays. Why are Sundays a thing? Why do you get Sundays off? Because of Jesus. Wait, I thought Saturday. Yeah, Saturday is like the Sabbath and the Jews celebrate. Why do we have Sundays off? Because Jesus rose from the dead on a Sunday. The church. Good institution, right? Big institution. The reason we have churches at all, Jesus. You say, okay, let me ask you this. What year is it? What year is it? 2023. Why? Because of Jesus, right? You know it's 2023 because it marks from the time of his birth. The calendar is set. Our calendar, our world's calendar, is set because of him. This carpenter from Nazareth, born in Bethlehem, that doesn't... The New Testament. You have a New Testament because of a carpenter from Israel. The golden rule: do unto others as you would have them do unto you. And let me say this last one, a final legacy of his: Christianity. With over 1 billion followers in the world today. Now, that's his legacy, and many others. Easter, Christmas, right? Things like that. They just affect the whole world. Now, as we were discussing this topic at a Bible study on Friday the other day, a friend of mine challenged me to take this whole thing out of the realm of intellectual thought and reasons and proof. And I can give you reasons all day, every day, and I don't know, maybe you will believe and maybe you won't. I certainly hope so. But he asks a good question, and he says, why do you believe in Jesus? Not just thought and reason, but soul. What gets you up in the morning? What keeps you going day after day? Right? And I took a few minutes, I thought about that, and I came up with a single 4-letter word. Well, this is what helps me. This is what gets me going in the morning, gets me going and gets me through every day. Hope. Hope. That's why I believe in Jesus. Not just my brain, my soul. I know the intellectual reasons, and I know the history, and I know the documentation and the proofs, and that helps me know and believe in my mind. I don't have a faith based on just random nothing, right? I have a religion, right? I have a relationship with Jesus based on hope. I'm looking up the words to a song that I think really illustrates this. This is by Lauren Daigle. Have anybody ever heard of her? She's got a few great songs out there, quite a few actually. And she says this in this song. I don't know that she wrote it, the words, but I've seen love come and I've seen love walk away. So many questions. Will anybody stay? It's been a hard year. So many nights in tears. All the darkness, trying to fight my fears. Alone, so long, alone. I don't know who I'd be if I didn't know you. I'd probably fall off the edge. And I don't know where I'd go if you ever let me go. So keep me in your hands. I've started breathing. The weight is lifted here. With you, it's easy. My head is finally clear. There's nothing missing when you are by my side. I took the long road, but now I realize I'm home with you. I'm home. And the bridge of this says, you're my safe place, my hideaway. You're my anchor, my saving grace. You're my constant, my steadiness. You're my shelter, my oxygen. Again, I don't know who I'd be without you. I don't know who I'd be if I didn't know you. I'd probably fall off the edge. That's really what I feel. I don't know where I'd go if you ever let go, so keep me in your hands. Hope. Jesus is my only hope for anything. This is not my intellectual, this is my soul, my heart, what keeps me going. I would literally be lost and without purpose if I didn't have Jesus in my life. I would have no meaning, I would have no hope. If this is random, if there is no God, which first of all would require more faith than believing in God and believing in Jesus. But Jesus gives me hope. I know, okay, right? I know that I'm a bad person. And you're I was waiting for an amen or something. I know, right? I know I'm a bad person. Like, deep down, you're a good character. No, I know I'm selfish. I know I'm wicked. And I have no hope of changing if there is no Jesus. And I will die in my sins forever, gone without him. Jesus gives me hope that he will change me. Jesus gives me hope that I will be justified, declared a good person, a righteous person. He gives me hope because I know deep down that I am bad, and no amount of excuses or ignorance or extenuating circumstances are going to change that. I'm bad. But Jesus gives me hope of being justified in God's eyes. Jesus gives me hope that one day I will become a good person. And Jesus gives me hope for a future even beyond my death. Can you understand the meaninglessness? The way my brain and my mind work, if I didn't have Jesus in my life, I'd fall off the edge. I literally can't imagine. And it's not just I don't just believe in him because I can't afford not to. I know that might be what you're thinking that I'm saying, but I'm not saying that because there are all the great reasons I just listed in 100 more. But personally, deep down, feeling it gives me a source of hope that someday, right, it's all going to work out, right? And I believe. I don't know what I would do. I would have given up a long time ago without Jesus in my life. A long time ago. I think if you want to have this hope in your life, you can. You can. And if you don't have it, I can't imagine your life. It's got to be tough. You must be distracting yourself with something. I don't know what. But I'm telling you that distraction will run out. Hopefully sooner rather than later, so that you can actually accept this truth and start following him and serving him and appreciating him for the sacrifice he already made in your behalf. Just believe. Believe you can choose. You can make a decision to believe. You can decide to believe, and you can pray and ask him to help your unbelief. And he will. I hope you do it today.